Everything felt over the moment Evelyn Carter's daughter shut the cabin door from the outside. Not gently, not with hesitation, with one hard slam that shook the dusty window panes like the whole place was coughing her out. Evelyn stood in the middle of the tiny living room with her hands still raised, palms open, like she could stop the sound from happening, like she could reach through the wood and pull her own child back by the sleeve. "Marissa?" Her voice cracked. "Honey, wait a second." Outside, tires spun on gravel. Headlights swept across the front window for a heartbeat, then vanished into the trees. And just like that, the only person Evelyn had left in the world drove away, leaving her alone in a cabin deep in the woods with one grocery bag of pills, a thin coat, and a heart that didn't know how to accept what had just happened. Have you ever heard silence so loud it feels like pressure in your ears? Evelyn walked to the door, tried the knob, and felt the ugly truth immediately. The deadbolt was turned from the outside. The lock was old, but it held. She leaned her shoulder into the door anyway, once, twice, like effort could replace logic. The door didn't move. "Marissa!" she shouted louder. "Please!" No answer. No footsteps coming back. Only the far-off engine fading until even that was gone. Evelyn pressed her forehead to the wood and squeezed her eyes shut. For a second she saw Marissa at 8 years old, missing her front tooth, holding Evelyn's hand crossing the street. She smelled peanut butter and the baby shampoo she used to buy at Target when money was tight and love was big enough to fill the gaps. Then she opened her eyes and smelled damp rot, cold smoke, and old dust. That's when she noticed the cabin didn't feel like a cozy place someone rented for a weekend. It felt like a place people forgot on purpose. Before we go any further, if you're the kind of person who believes older people deserve dignity, safety, and respect, take a second to hit like and subscribe, because what happens to Evelyn out here is going to make your stomach turn. And then, if you stay to the end, it's going to make you believe in justice again. Evelyn turned slowly, taking inventory the way her late husband taught her when panic hit. One thing at a time. What's real? What's next? There was a couch with a sagging cushion and a blanket that smelled like mildew. A small table. A kitchen with a chipped enamel sink. A wood stove in the corner, black with old soot, and a pile of split logs by the wall that looked like they'd been there for years. On the counter, an empty jar of instant coffee, a broken lighter, and a stack of paper plates. And on the wall near the back hallway, a calendar with a year from 3 summers ago. Who keeps a calendar from 3 summers ago unless no one's been here since? Evelyn's hand shook as she set the grocery bag down. It wasn't much. 2 prescription bottles for her heart, 1 for her blood pressure, her inhaler, a small bottle of water, a bruised apple, a granola bar, a cheap flashlight from the gas station, and shoved in the side pocket like an afterthought, the photo she'd begged Marissa not to leave behind, a faded picture of Evelyn and her husband Tom on their porch in Columbus, Ohio, both of them laughing, their faces sunlit and alive. Her throat tightened when she looked at Tom's face. "Tom," she whispered, like she could send the word into the air and have it come back as a hand on her shoulder. "What do I do?" The cabin answered with a soft creak, like it was shifting in the wind. Evelyn went to the front window and tried to see the road. It was already dark under the tree canopy, even though it wasn't fully night yet. Pines and bare branches tangled together like a fence. A narrow dirt track ran past the cabin, but it disappeared quickly into the woods. She tried the window. Painted shut. She tried the next one. Same. When she turned back, she noticed something that made her stomach drop. There were no curtains, not in any window. Almost like someone didn't want anyone inside hiding from outside eyes. Or worse, like someone wanted to see in. Evelyn hugged her coat tighter around her body. The temperature had dropped fast. October in southern Ohio could be cruel, especially in the shade. Her bones already ached. She forced herself to breathe slow, like the nurse at the clinic had taught her. Panic doesn't change facts. Panic just burns your energy. Facts. Evelyn repeated the word in her head. She had been living with Marissa for 6 months. Not because she wanted to, but because her landlord sold the duplex where Evelyn had rented for 11 years. After Tom died, Evelyn couldn't afford the new rent anywhere decent. Marissa insisted. She cried. She promised. "I won't let you be alone, Mom," Marissa had said, gripping Evelyn's hands over a diner table off Route 23. "We'll figure it out together." Evelyn believed her because that's what mothers do. But the last month had been different. Marissa started coming home late. Marissa started snapping over small things. Marissa started talking about money like it was a person sitting at their kitchen table, breathing down their necks. Then came the papers. A power of attorney, just in case. A request to make things easier. Then, one afternoon, the real thing. "Mom, I need you to sign this," Marissa said, sliding a document across the counter. "It's just to move your stuff into my name for safety. It protects you. It protects us." Evelyn adjusted her reading glasses, scanned the lines, and felt her chest tighten when she understood what it was. A quit-claim deed. Her late husband's land up north. The last thing Tom left her besides memories. 50 acres outside Marietta, Ohio. Mostly woods, some rocky hills, and an old cabin that Tom's father built decades ago. Evelyn had never even seen it. Tom always called it the Carter place. He spoke about it like it was a promise for later. A quiet retirement, a place they'd fix up when their knees were still good enough to climb ladders. But later never came. Evelyn pushed the paper back. "I'm not signing that," she said softly. Marissa's eyes hardened. "Why not?" "Because it's not yours." Marissa's jaw twitched. "It's going to be mine one day anyway." Evelyn stared at her daughter like she didn't recognize her. "That's not how love works, Marissa." That night, Marissa didn't speak to her. The next morning, Marissa made coffee, smiled too wide, and said, "Let's take a little trip, Mom. Fresh air. You've been cooped up. We'll stay at the cabin. Just us." Evelyn wanted to believe it was reconciliation. She wanted to believe her daughter still had the same heart Evelyn raised. So she packed the grocery bag, grabbed the photo, and got into the car. Now she stood abandoned in a cabin she didn't even know existed. Does betrayal hurt more when it comes from the person you take a bullet for? Evelyn shuffled to the back hallway, searching for another exit. There was a door leading to a small bedroom, a second door leading to a bathroom with a cracked mirror and a dry toilet, and at the very end, a third door. Evelyn's pulse jumped as she reached for that knob. The door opened. Cold air rushed in. It was a back door leading to a tiny porch and then down a few steps into the woods. For a second, relief nearly buckled her knees. She could leave. She could walk out. Then she stepped onto the porch and froze. There were fresh tire tracks in the dirt near the back side of the cabin. Not from Marissa's sedan. Bigger, wider, and there were footprints. Several sets. Not old prints washed away by rain. Fresh impressions pressed into the damp ground. Someone else had been here today. Evelyn backed inside and closed the door slowly, carefully, as if sound could summon trouble. Her mouth went dry. Marissa didn't just dump her here. Marissa dumped her somewhere other people used. Why? Evelyn looked at the time on her cheap watch. 6:14 p.m. The light was fading fast. She needed a plan. She needed warmth, water, and a way to call for help. She searched the cabin for a phone line. There was a dusty rotary phone on the wall. Dead. No dial tone. She checked outlets. The cabin had electricity, but the overhead lights didn't turn on. She tried the lamp by the couch. Nothing. Power was off. Evelyn clicked the flashlight on. The weak beam cut through the dimness like a thin promise. She found a box of matches in a drawer. Half the matches were damp, but some might work. She found a metal kettle, dented but usable. She found a few canned goods in a cabinet, beans, corn, an old can of soup. The labels were faded, but she didn't care. She wasn't picky anymore. She was scared. She moved to the wood stove, knelt slowly, and felt her knees complain. Her hands shook as she arranged kindling. Her breath came short when she struck the first match. It snapped, went out. Second match. It flared and died. Third match. It caught, held, and for a moment, the tiny flame looked like hope. Evelyn fed it paper, then twigs, then a thin stick. The stove gave a reluctant crackle, then a stronger one. Warmth started to creep into the room, slow as sunrise. Evelyn sat back on her heels and let herself breathe, but then she heard it. A faint sound, somewhere beyond the cabin walls. Not wind, not a branch tapping the roof. Footsteps, slow, heavy, crunching leaves. Evelyn's body went rigid. She killed the flashlight and stood in the dark, listening. The footsteps stopped. Then came a low, muffled thud against the side of the cabin, like someone setting something down, or testing the wall. Evelyn's heart pounded so hard she thought it might break her ribs. She raised the flashlight again, but kept it off, gripping it like a weapon. "Hello?" she called, trying to make her voice firm. "Is someone out there?" Silence. Then a voice, distant, male, casual. "Cabins occupied?" Evelyn swallowed. "Yes." A pause. Then another voice, closer, also male. That wasn't the plan. Evelyn stepped backward until her shoulders touched the wall. Plan? The first voice said, "We'll come back later." The footsteps retreated, crunching away into the dark. Evelyn stayed frozen until the sound was gone. Then she slid down the wall and sat on the floor, hugging her knees. Her breath came in shallow bursts. What kind of plan involved her being alone in a locked cabin? And why did those men act like she was in their way? Evelyn forced herself up. She couldn't stay curled on the floor. She needed to survive the night. She needed to be ready. She turned the flashlight on low and checked every window again. Painted shut. She tried to pry one with a butter knife. No give. She went to the front door and pounded on it from inside. "Marissa!" she screamed, even though she knew it was pointless. Her voice echoed off the trees and died. Then she did the only thing she could think of. She started talking out loud, to Tom, to God, to herself. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. We're not falling apart. We're not." She looked at the old couch and thought of the nights she used to sit with Tom, watching the local news, complaining about the weather, laughing at silly commercials. Simple life. Safe life. Her eyes burned. "I'm going to get through tonight," she said, "and then I'm going to get help, and I'm going to find out why she did this. I'm going to find out what's going on." Because deep down, beneath the heartbreak, a spark of something harder was waking up. Anger. Not wild anger. Not screaming anger. The kind of anger that keeps you alive. Evelyn ate the bruised apple slowly, took a sip of water, and counted her pills. Enough for 2 days if she rationed. She kept the fire small to conserve wood. The cabin warmed a little, but the cold still seeped through the floorboards. Hours crawled. The woods outside settled into night sounds. Owls, distant rustles, wind shifting the branches. Evelyn tried to sleep on the couch, but every creak made her eyes snap open. Around midnight she heard something near the back porch. A scratching sound. Soft, repetitive. Evelyn's breath caught. She sat up slowly, heart hammering. Scratch, scratch. She lifted the flashlight and aimed it toward the back door. The scratching stopped. Then came a whine. Not human. An animal. Evelyn stood, moved closer, and whispered, "Hello?" Another whine, followed by a gentle pawing at the wood. Evelyn hesitated. She remembered those footprints, those men, the word plan. But the sound outside didn't carry menace. It carried need. Evelyn unlatched the back door carefully. It wasn't locked from outside like the front. She cracked it open. A dog stood there, shivering, medium-sized, brown and white, with ribs faintly visible, ears drooping, eyes wide and pleading. It looked like a beagle mix, or maybe a hound that had been lost too long. Evelyn's chest tightened. "Hey," she whispered. "Oh, sweetheart." The dog took one cautious step forward, sniffed the air, then sat, trembling. Evelyn knelt, pain shooting through her knees, and held out her hand. The dog leaned in and pressed its nose to her fingers. Warm, alive. Evelyn felt tears slip down her cheeks without permission. "Are you alone too?" she murmured. The dog's tail thumped once, weakly. Evelyn opened the door wider. "Come in, come on. It's cold." The dog hesitated, then stepped inside like it had been invited into grace itself. It shook its fur, then stood close to Evelyn's leg. Evelyn shut the door and locked it. She tore a piece of the granola bar and offered it. The dog took it gently, as if it knew this was all she had. Evelyn smiled through tears. Okay, we'll share. She looked around, then found an old towel in a cabinet. She spread it near the stove and patted it. The dog curled up and let out a long sigh. Evelyn sat on the couch and watched the dog, feeling something inside her unclench. Sometimes the first ally you find isn't a person. Sometimes it's a heartbeat beside you in the dark. What should I call you? Evelyn whispered. The dog lifted its head. Evelyn glanced at Tom's photo again and remembered the dog they had when Marissa was little. A goofy mutt named Scout that used to follow Tom around the yard. Scout, she decided softly. Your name is Scout. The dog blinked, then rested its chin on its paws. Evelyn lay down again, keeping her eyes half open, listening. Scout's breathing became steady, comforting. But then around 2:30 a.m., Scout's head snapped up. A low growl rumbled in its throat. Evelyn sat up, instantly awake. What is it? She whispered. Scout stood, ears perked, staring toward the back wall near the kitchen. Evelyn followed the dog's gaze. At first, she saw nothing. Then she heard it, a faint tapping sound. Not from outside, from inside the wall. Tap, tap, tap. Evelyn's skin prickled. Scout growled again, quieter but more intense. Evelyn slid off the couch, moved slowly, and held the flashlight beam against the wall. The light caught on something odd. A narrow seam in the wooden paneling, almost invisible unless you looked for it. Like a section had been removed and replaced. Evelyn's mouth went dry. Why would someone replace wall panels in a cabin that looks abandoned? Tap, tap, tap! Then a muffled metallic clink, like something shifting behind the wood. Evelyn's mind raced. Is there an animal trapped? A pipe? A person? She crouched and ran her fingers along the seam. One panel felt slightly loose. Evelyn looked at Scout. Should we? Scout whined, then nudged her hand. Evelyn took a slow breath. Okay. She found a screwdriver in a drawer. Rusted but usable. She wedged it into the seam and pried. The panel resisted at first, then popped loose with a soft crack. Cold air breathed out of the gap. Evelyn aimed the flashlight inside. A small cavity. And inside that cavity, wrapped in plastic and duct tape, was a metal box about the size of a thick book. Evelyn stared like she was seeing a ghost. Scout sniffed the opening, then looked up at her, tail twitching. Evelyn's hands shook as she reached in and pulled the box out. It was heavier than it looked. The plastic wrapping was tight, layered like someone wanted it protected from moisture, or hidden for a long time. Evelyn sat on the floor with the box in her lap. She stared at it, heart pounding. Who put this here? And why did it feel like it had been waiting for her? She tried to open it. There was a small lock, but the lock wasn't engaged. It was just there for show. The lid lifted with a squeak. Inside were papers in manila envelopes, a small digital voice recorder, and a folded map. Evelyn's breath caught. The top envelope had a name written in neat, familiar handwriting. Tom Carter. Evelyn's whole body went cold. Tom? She whispered, barely able to speak. Scout pressed against her side like it was anchoring her to the floor. Evelyn pulled the envelope out and opened it carefully. The first paper was a letter. Evelyn, if you're reading this, something went wrong, or something finally came to the surface. I'm sorry for what this will cost you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I didn't want you to live scared. But if you're at the cabin and this box is in your hands, then you need to listen, and you need to be smart. The land isn't just land. The cabin isn't just a cabin. And the people who want it will hurt anyone who stands in their way. I left proof, real proof, enough to stop them, enough to protect you if you use it right. Don't trust anyone who comes alone. If you're in danger, go to the sheriff's office in Marietta and ask for Deputy Hannah Ruiz. If Hannah's not there, find Park Ranger Daniel Mercer. He'll know what to do. And Evelyn, I love you. I've always loved you. Don't let them make you feel small. Tom Evelyn's hands trembled so hard the paper fluttered. Tears blurred the words. She wiped her face with her sleeve and read it again, slower, like her eyes needed to believe her mind. Tom had written this. Tom had hidden a box in a wall in a cabin she didn't know existed. Tom had mentioned danger, and he named people, specific people. Deputy Hannah Ruiz, Park Ranger Daniel Mercer. Evelyn's heart slammed in her chest. Tom never made things up. Tom was steady. Tom was facts. So what was this? She looked at the other envelopes. One said, deed history. Another said audio. Another said Holloway. Evelyn's throat tightened at that name. Holloway. Because she had heard it before. Not in her life. In Marissa's life. Marissa used to mention a man named Grant Holloway. She called him Mr. Holloway like he was important. A developer. A big donor at her church. A guy who owned half the county, it seemed. Marissa had once said, half laughing, "People don't say no to Holloway around here." Evelyn didn't like the way she said it. Evelyn stared at the envelope labeled Holloway. Then she heard something outside. A car door closing. Not Marissa's sedan. A heavier sound. Scout sprang up, fur bristling. Evelyn froze, clutching the papers to her chest. Headlights swept through the trees and spilled across the cabin wall like a warning. A man's voice carried through the dark. "Yeah, lights were on earlier. She's in there." Evelyn's blood ran cold. They came back, and now they knew she was inside. Scout growled low, pacing. Evelyn's mind raced. Tom said don't trust anyone who comes alone. But she was alone. She grabbed the box, shoved the papers back inside without organizing them, and snapped it shut. She wrapped it in the plastic again as fast as she could, hands clumsy with fear. Footsteps approached the back porch. Evelyn backed away, scanning the cabin for a place to hide. The bedroom closet? Too obvious. Under the bed? Too slow. She looked at the floor near the stove and noticed something she hadn't before. A small iron ring embedded in the wooden planks, like a trapdoor pull. Evelyn's breath caught. She dropped to her knees, grabbed the ring, and pulled. The wood resisted, then lifted with a groan. A dark opening yawned beneath. A crawl space, a root cellar, something. Scout whined, unsure. Evelyn whispered, "Come on, please." The back door handle jiggled. Metal scraped. Someone was trying the lock. Evelyn didn't think. She just acted. She lowered the box into the opening, then climbed down after it, moving slower than she wanted because her joints screamed. Scout hesitated, then jumped down too, landing softly beside her. Evelyn pulled the trapdoor closed from below, leaving only a thin crack for air. The crawl space smelled like damp earth and old wood. It was tight, low, barely enough room to crouch. Evelyn hugged the box to her chest and held her breath. The back door rattled again. Then a heavy kick. Wood creaked. A lock snapped. The door opened. Boots stepped into the cabin. Evelyn pressed her hand over her mouth to stop herself from making a sound. Scout's body trembled beside her, but the dog stayed quiet, like it understood this was life or death. A flashlight beam swept across the cabin above them, slicing through the cracks in the floorboards like sharp blades. A man's voice said, "You see her?" Another man answered, "Not yet." The first voice, "Search, she can't go far." Boots moved across the floor. Cabinets opened, drawers slammed, the couch cushions were yanked off. Then came a sound that made Evelyn's stomach twist. The sound of the wall panel being pulled loose. The men had found the seam. Evelyn's heart pounded so hard she thought it would shake the floor. "Here," one man said, breathless. This was pried open. The other man swore under his breath. "She found it." A pause, then quieter. "Dangerous. If she found the box, we have a problem." Evelyn felt tears sting her eyes, not from fear but from realization. Tom was right. The cabin wasn't just a cabin. It was a hiding place for something people would kill for. Boots moved closer to the stove. Evelyn stared at the crack of light between two floorboards. The men stood right above her. One said, "You think she's still here?" The other said, "She's old. Where's she gonna go? There's only woods." Then the first man laughed. A cold sound. Old doesn't mean harmless. Old means desperate. Old means she'll do something stupid. Evelyn squeezed the box tighter. Scout's nails scraped the dirt once, softly. The men went silent. One voice said, sharp, "Did you hear that?" Evelyn stopped breathing. The cabin above creaked as the man stepped closer, right over the trapdoor. Evelyn's body locked up. Then suddenly, Scout let out one loud bark. It wasn't a warning bark. It was a distraction. The dog barked and scratched at the dirt, making noise, drawing attention. The men reacted instantly. The trapdoor handle moved. Evelyn whispered, "No." The trapdoor began to lift. Light spilled into the crawl space. Evelyn stared up into the beam of the flashlight and saw the outline of a man's face, half shadow, eyes narrowed. "Well, well," the man said. "There you are." Evelyn clutched the box and scooted backward, but the crawl space was tight. The man leaned down, reaching. Scout lunged. The dog bit the man's hand hard. The man cursed and jerked back, dropping the flashlight. It clattered on the floor above, beam spinning. "Get that dog!" he yelled. Scout barked again, wild, fierce. Evelyn's mind snapped into survival mode. There was only one way out of this crawl space, another opening. She remembered seeing something like it in old houses. A vent, a second exit. She swept her flashlight beam across the dirt wall. And there, near the far corner, was a narrow wooden panel, like an old access hatch, half rotted. Evelyn crawled toward it, dragging the box, knees sinking into damp soil. Behind her the trapdoor opened wider. Boots thudded as a man started to climb down. Evelyn shoved at the rotted panel. It gave, cracking and collapsing inward. Cold air rushed in. Beyond it was a small tunnel, barely tall enough to crawl. It smelled like leaves and mud. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She shoved the box into the tunnel and crawled after it, pushing herself forward with trembling arms. Behind her, a man's voice shouted, "She's getting out!" Another voice furious, "Stop her!" Scout squeezed into the tunnel too, scraping fur against the wood. Evelyn crawled faster, panic giving her strength. The tunnel angled upward. Dirt crumbled under her hands. Her lungs burned. Her heart felt like it was slamming against a locked door inside her chest. Then she saw faint moonlight ahead. An opening. Evelyn shoved through and tumbled out onto wet leaves behind the cabin, hidden by brush. She rolled onto her back, gasping, clutching the box like it was a newborn. Scout scrambled out and stood over her, growling at the tunnel entrance. Evelyn whispered, "Good boy, good boy." But there was no time. Voices shouted behind the cabin. Flashlights sliced through the trees. Evelyn forced herself up and stumbled into the woods, one hand on the box, the other gripping Scout's collar. Branches slapped her face. Roots tried to trip her. Her breath came in ragged pulls. What would you do if your own child left you for strangers who hunt you in the dark? Evelyn didn't have time to answer. She ran. The woods were a maze. The cabin light faded behind her, but the flashlights followed, bobbing like angry fireflies. A man yelled, "She can't be far! Spread out!" Evelyn's legs shook. Her chest hurt. Her vision blurred at the edges. Scout tugged her forward, nose low like the dog was tracking something. Evelyn didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stop. She saw a glint of something through the trees, metal reflecting moonlight, a road sign, a county road. Evelyn's heart leaped. She pushed harder, stumbling out of the brush onto a narrow gravel road. County Road 67. The sign stood crooked, barely visible, but it was there. Evelyn stepped into the middle of the road and waved her flashlight wildly. "Help!" she screamed. "Please, help!" For a moment, nothing. Then headlights appeared around the bend. A pickup truck. Evelyn's knees nearly gave out. The truck slowed, then stopped hard, tires crunching gravel. A man leaned out the window. He was older too, maybe late 60s, wearing a worn flannel jacket and a Cleveland Browns hat. "Ma'am," he called. "Are you okay?" Evelyn stumbled toward the truck, tears streaming. "Please," she gasped. "They're after me, please." The man's eyes widened. He looked past her into the woods. Scout barked toward the trees. The man swore under his breath. "Get in. Right now." Evelyn climbed into the passenger seat, clutching the box. Scout jumped in after her. The man slammed the truck into gear and sped away, gravel spraying. In the rearview mirror, Evelyn saw flashlights break through the brush at the edge of the road. Too late. A man shouted something she couldn't hear. Then darkness swallowed them. Evelyn collapsed against the seat, shaking violently. The man glanced at her. "What the hell's going on?" Evelyn tried to speak, but her throat wouldn't cooperate. She could only hold the box and breathe. The man said, "My name's Earl Whitman. I was headed back from my brother's place. You're white as a sheet, ma'am. You need an ER?" Evelyn forced the words out. "Sheriff," she whispered. "I need the sheriff's office. Marietta." Earl frowned. "Marietta's a drive." "Please," Evelyn said, voice breaking. "Please, I'm not safe." Earl looked at her, then at Scout, then at the box in her lap. His jaw tightened like he'd made a decision. "All right," he said. "Hang on." As the truck bounced down the county road, Evelyn stared out the window at the passing trees. Her mind kept circling one question, sharper than fear. Marissa. Did Marissa know those men were coming? Did she set this up? Or did she just not care? Evelyn squeezed her eyes shut, fighting a sob. The worst part of being abandoned wasn't the loneliness. It was the doubt. Because if your own daughter can do this, what else is true? Earl drove her into a small town just outside Marietta, where the streets were quiet and storefronts dark. He pulled into a gas station under harsh fluorescent lights. "You need water," Earl said, hopping out. "I'm getting you water." Evelyn shook her head. "Don't leave me," she whispered. Earl paused, then nodded like he understood. He left his truck door open and moved fast, buying water and a pack of crackers. When he returned, he handed her the bottle. "Drink." Evelyn sipped. Her hands trembled. Scout licked her wrist. Earl watched her carefully. "Those guys, what did they want?" Evelyn swallowed. "This." She patted the box. "My husband. He hid something. I found it. They tried to take it." Earl's brows knit. "Your husband hid it. Out there?" Evelyn nodded. Tears welled again. "He's dead. He wrote a letter. He said, if I'm reading it, something went wrong." Earl exhaled slowly. "Well, sounds like something is real wrong." Evelyn stared at the box. "He named someone, Deputy Hannah Ruiz. Park Ranger Daniel Mercer." Earl's eyes flickered with recognition. "Ruiz? Yeah, I've heard of her. Good cop. Doesn't play games." Evelyn nodded, swallowing panic. "Take me." Earl didn't hesitate. He started the truck again. As they drove, Evelyn watched the clock tick closer to morning. The sky remained dark, but a faint gray line hovered on the horizon. Her body was exhausted. Her heart felt strained, but her mind was awake in a way it hadn't been in years, because this wasn't just about being abandoned anymore. This was about why. Earl pulled into the Washington County Sheriff's Office around 4:18 a.m. The building was small, brick, with a flagpole out front and a few patrol cars parked under dim lights. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and old paper. A deputy at the front desk looked up, startled to see an elderly woman with mud on her coat, a trembling dog, and a wide-eyed older man behind her. "Ma'am?" the deputy said. "Are you okay?" Evelyn stepped forward, gripping the box. Her voice shook but held. "I need Deputy Hannah Ruiz." The deputy frowned. "Ruiz isn't on shift until—" "It's urgent," Evelyn said, the word sharp. "My name is Evelyn Carter. My husband was Tom Carter. He told me to come here." The deputy's expression changed slightly, like a door cracking open. "Tom Carter?" Evelyn nodded. The deputy stood. "Sit down, ma'am. I'm going to get Sergeant Miller. Ruiz might be off duty, but we'll see." Evelyn sat in a plastic chair, Scout at her feet, Earl hovering like a guard. Minutes stretched. A man in a sheriff's uniform appeared. Older, gray hair, tired eyes. He looked at Evelyn and frowned. "Ms. Carter?" he asked. Evelyn stood slowly. "Yes." He glanced at the mud, the dog, the box. "I'm Sergeant Miller. What's going on?" Evelyn opened the box, pulled out Tom's letter with trembling fingers, and handed it over. Miller read it quickly, his eyes moving faster when he saw the names. He looked up. "Where did you get this?" Evelyn swallowed. "The cabin. In the woods. My daughter. She left me there. Locked me in." Miller's jaw tightened. "She left you there?" Evelyn nodded, shame and fury mixing in her chest. "And men came." They broke in. They tried to take this box. Miller looked toward the back hallway. Get Ruiz, he snapped to the deputy. Now. Within minutes, a woman stepped into the lobby wearing jeans, boots, and a sheriff's jacket thrown over a hoodie. Her hair was pulled back. Her eyes were sharp, awake despite the hour. Deputy Hannah Ruiz. She looked at Evelyn like she was assessing a situation, not judging a person, like she had seen pain before and knew how to hold it steady. Ms. Carter, Ruiz said, I'm Hannah. You're safe right now. Tell me what happened. Evelyn inhaled slowly and began. She told her about Marissa and the papers, about the cabin, about the men, about the wall panel, about the box, about the crawl space. Ruiz listened without interrupting. Her face hardened when Evelyn said the men broke in. When Evelyn mentioned the name Holloway, Ruiz's eyes narrowed. What did you say? Ruiz asked. Evelyn swallowed. There's an envelope that says Holloway. My husband mentioned danger. I've heard the name in my daughter's life. Ruiz exchanged a quick look with Sergeant Miller. Earl cleared his throat. I picked her up on County Road 67. Those flashlights were coming out of the woods. I'm not making it up. Ruiz nodded once. I believe you. Evelyn's eyes filled. My daughter. Why would she do this? Ruiz's expression softened for a brief second. We'll deal with that. But first, I need to see what's in that box. Evelyn hesitated. It felt like letting go of Tom's last voice. Ruiz noticed. I'm not here to take something from you, Ms. Carter. I'm here to keep you alive. Evelyn nodded and opened the box again. Ruiz pulled out the envelope labeled audio first. Inside was the digital recorder and a small USB drive taped to the back. Ruiz turned the recorder over. Does it have a charge? Evelyn shook her head. I don't know. Ruiz grabbed a charging cable from the desk drawer and plugged it into a computer behind the counter. Then she opened the envelope labeled Deed History. Paperwork spilled out. Land records, copies of old deeds, survey maps, county documents. Evelyn watched Ruiz's eyes scan the pages. Ruiz's face tightened. What is it? Evelyn whispered. Ruiz set the papers down carefully, like they were fragile but dangerous. This land, she said, tapping a map. It's not just 50 acres. Evelyn blinked. What do you mean? Ruiz pointed to a highlighted boundary line. This shows the cabin sits on a section that overlaps with a bigger parcel. It's connected to a timber and mineral rights dispute. Evelyn's mouth went dry. Mineral rights? Ruiz nodded. Coal. Maybe gas. Maybe something else. People get ugly over that. Evelyn's stomach twisted. Tom never said coal. Tom never said anything about money like that. Ruiz pulled out the envelope labeled Holloway. Inside were bank statements, copies of checks, a handwritten ledger, and a printed email chain. Ruiz's jaw clenched as she read. Sergeant Miller leaned closer, eyes widening. Evelyn's voice trembled. What is it? Ruiz looked up, her eyes serious. Miss Carter, your husband was documenting payments, bribes, maybe more. Evelyn felt like the air left the room. Tom? She whispered. He was a good man. Ruiz nodded. Good men sometimes keep records because they're trying to stop bad ones. Evelyn's hands shook. Why didn't he tell me? Ruiz's expression softened. Because he didn't want you pulled into it. But somehow you were anyway. Evelyn's heart sank. Somehow. Marissa. Ruiz closed the box and looked at Evelyn. We need to get you somewhere safe, and we need to secure this evidence. I'm calling in Park Ranger Mercer like your husband said, and I'm notifying an investigator with Ohio BCI. This might be bigger than our county. Evelyn swallowed. And my daughter. Ruiz's eyes hardened. We'll find her. Evelyn's knees trembled. Please. I don't want her hurt. Ruiz studied her. After what she did to you? Evelyn's voice broke. She's still my daughter. Ruiz nodded slowly, like she respected the pain even if she couldn't understand it. We'll do this right. We'll do it legal. Evelyn sat back down, exhausted. Scout rested its head on her foot. Evelyn looked down and whispered, Tom, what did you get yourself into? And that's when Ruiz's phone buzzed. She answered, listened, and her face tightened. What? Evelyn whispered. Ruiz hung up and looked at Sergeant Miller. We have a problem. Miller straightened. What kind? Ruiz's voice was low. Someone just called the front desk pretending to be a family member asking if Evelyn Carter is here. Evelyn's blood went cold. Earl muttered, "They found you." Ruiz nodded. "They're faster than I hoped." Evelyn gripped the armrest. "What do we do?" Ruiz looked at her, steady. "We move." They got Evelyn into a small back room, away from windows. Ruiz gave Scout a bowl of water. Earl refused to leave. "I'm staying," Earl said. "I brought her here. I'm not ditching her." Ruiz didn't argue. "Fine, but do what I say." Minutes later, a man in a green uniform walked into the station carrying a ranger hat in his hand. He was tall, mid-40s, with a calm face that looked like it had spent years dealing with lost hikers and forest fires. Park Ranger Daniel Mercer. He spotted Evelyn and stopped like he'd been punched by memory. "Ms. Carter," he said quietly. Evelyn blinked. "Do I know you?" Mercer's eyes softened. "I knew your husband." Evelyn's throat tightened. "Tom. He mentioned you." Mercer nodded. "He came to me a few years back. Told me there were things happening on those woods he didn't like. He asked me to keep an eye out." Evelyn stared. "What things?" Mercer's jaw tightened. "Illegal dumping, trespass, strange trucks at night, people marking trees. And a few times I saw men with guns who didn't look like hunters." Evelyn's stomach twisted. Mercer looked at Ruiz. "You have the box?" Ruiz nodded. "We do. It has documents and audio. It mentions Holloway." Mercer exhaled through his nose. "Of course it does," Evelyn whispered. "Who is Holloway to you?" Mercer's eyes turned hard. "Grant Holloway, real estate developer, timber leases, big donor, big mouth. He's been sniffing around protected land for years. Always has lawyers, always has connections." Evelyn's heart pounded. "And my daughter, she knows him." Ruiz's expression sharpened. "How does she know him?" Evelyn swallowed. "She started going to a new church. She volunteered at events. She said he was generous." Mercer nodded once, grim. "Generous people don't usually need men with guns in the woods." Evelyn's hands shook. "What's in those woods? Why do they want my land?" Mercer looked at her, careful. Tom believed there was a buried story out there, something that could destroy Holloway and maybe expose people who helped him. Evelyn stared, heart aching. Tom kept that alone. Mercer's voice softened. "He tried to keep you out of it." Ruiz stepped closer to Evelyn. "Ms. Carter, there's something else. Elder abandonment is a crime. Locking you in a cabin, leaving you without care? That's serious. Social services will get involved. We will handle that part too." Evelyn flinched at the thought of strangers deciding her life. "I don't want to be put somewhere." Ruiz shook her head. "No one is putting you anywhere. You have a say, but right now you need protection." Evelyn nodded slowly, fighting tears. Mercer said, "The cabin. We need to go back." Evelyn's breath caught. "Back?" Ruiz nodded. "Those men were searching. They'll search again. If there's more evidence hidden there, we need it before they destroy it." Evelyn clutched the box. Tom said there was proof, enough to stop them. Mercer glanced at the letter. He also said, "Don't trust anyone who comes alone." Ruiz nodded. "We won't. We'll go with backup." Evelyn's voice shook. "If we go back, they'll be there." Ruiz's eyes held hers. "I know." Evelyn swallowed hard, then did something that surprised even herself. She nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "I'm not leaving without answers." Because something had shifted in her. She wasn't just a scared old woman anymore. She was a wife carrying her husband's last fight. She was a mother facing her daughter's betrayal. And she was done being pushed. They waited until sunrise when the woods weren't as blind. Ruiz coordinated with 2 deputies and a BCI investigator named Malcolm Price, who arrived in an unmarked car with a serious face and a laptop bag. Price looked at the documents quickly, then at Evelyn. "Ms. Carter, I'm sorry you're dealing with this, but this could be major." Evelyn's voice trembled. "Major like what?" Price tapped a page. "If this is accurate, it points to fraud, land theft, bribery, maybe environmental crimes. And if Holloway's involved, he's not doing it alone." Evelyn's stomach tightened. "So, you believe my husband?" Price nodded. I believe your husband was trying to do the right thing. People don't hide this kind of stuff for fun. Evelyn looked at Scout. And my daughter? Ruiz said. We're going to locate her, but we can't rush in blind. We need the whole picture. Mercer added, the woods will tell us. If we can get to the cabin and find the rest. Evelyn's hand shook. What else could there be? Mercer's voice was grim. Tom told me once, just once, that the most important proof wasn't in the box. The box was the trail. The main thing was hidden deeper. Evelyn's mouth went dry. Deeper where? Mercer looked at her. He wouldn't say. He only said it was tied to an old well behind the cabin. Evelyn's heart pounded. An old well. She didn't even know there was a well. Ruiz looked at Evelyn. You don't have to go back out there, Miss Carter. We can handle it. Evelyn surprised herself again. I'm going. Ruiz frowned. It's dangerous. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, but her voice steadied. It's my husband's proof. It's my land. It's my life they try to erase. If I sit in a safe room while you risk yourselves for me, I'll never forgive myself. Mercer nodded slowly, respect in his eyes. Ruiz hesitated, then nodded. All right, but you stay close to me. Understand? Evelyn nodded. They drove in a small convoy, 2 patrol SUVs and Mercer's Ranger truck. Earl insisted on coming too. You're not law enforcement, Ruiz warned him. Earl shrugged. I'm a witness, and I'm not leaving her alone again. Evelyn looked at Earl, surprised by gratitude. Thank you. Earl cleared his throat. My mother lived to 84. If someone had dumped her in the woods, I'd want a stranger to step up. Evelyn's eyes burned. They took county roads, then narrower gravel lanes. The trees thickened. The air smelled like wet leaves and pine. As they approached the area, Mercer's expression sharpened. He slowed his truck, scanning for signs. See that? He asked, pointing. Fresh tire tracks. Not just one set. Multiple. Ruiz's jaw tightened. They've been busy. Evelyn's stomach clenched. The cabin came into view between trees. It looked the same. Small, weathered, quiet. Too quiet. Ruiz signaled the vehicles to stop a little back. Deputies spread out, hands near their holsters. Mercer moved with practiced caution, eyes on the woods, not the cabin. Evelyn stood by Ruiz's side, clutching her coat tight. Scout stayed close, ears alert. Price whispered, if they're here, they'll run when they see us. Ruiz's eyes stayed sharp, or they'll fight. Evelyn's breath caught. They approached slowly. The front door was open. Evelyn's heart dropped. Ruiz raised a hand, signaling stop. She whispered, someone's inside. Mercer crouched near a window, listened. From inside, faint voices. Male, laughing. Ruiz whispered, we wait. We listen. Then we move. Evelyn's pulse pounded in her ears. Through the open door she could smell cigarette smoke, and then she heard a voice she recognized. Not male. Female. Marissa. Evelyn froze. Her daughter's voice drifted out of the cabin, tense and sharp. I told you she was old. I told you she wouldn't know what she found. A man's voice answered, amused. You sure about that? Because she got away. Marissa snapped. Because of that stupid dog. Evelyn felt like her heart cracked. Marissa knew. Marissa knew men were coming. Marissa knew they were searching. And she still locked her mother in and drove away. Ruiz glanced at Evelyn, reading her face. Evelyn whispered, barely audible, That's my daughter. Mercer's jaw tightened. Another voice spoke, deeper, calm, controlling. Enough! We're not wasting time. Evelyn's stomach twisted. She had never heard that voice before, but she felt its weight, power. The man continued, We get the box back, we clear the cabin, and we finish this before anyone else gets curious. Marissa's voice dropped. What if she already handed it to the cops? The man laughed softly. Small-town cops. They won't touch me. Evelyn's blood ran cold. Ruiz whispered into her radio. We have multiple subjects inside. One is the victim's daughter. Stand by. Price's face hardened. That's enough. We go. Ruiz signaled. Deputies moved fast, surrounding the cabin. Ruiz stepped to the door and called out, voice loud and commanding. Washington County Sheriff's Office. Everyone inside, show your hands and come out now. Silence. Then movement. Shuffling. A curse. A man yelled, "Back door!" Ruiz shouted, "Now! Hands!" A man burst out the back door running. A deputy tackled him into the mud. Another man bolted from the side. But Mercer moved like he'd been waiting for that exact moment, stepping into his path and forcing him to stop with a firm, steady presence. "Don't," Mercer said. "Just don't." Then Marissa stepped into the doorway. Evelyn's daughter looked like a stranger. Her hair was pulled back messy. Her eyes were wide. Her face was pale, not from fear of Evelyn, but fear of consequences. Ruiz said, "Ma'am, step outside. Hands where I can see them." Marissa's eyes flicked around, desperate, and then she saw Evelyn. For a second, something flashed across her face. Guilt, or maybe shock that her mother wasn't dead in the woods like she'd assumed. "Mom," Marissa whispered, voice trembling. Evelyn stepped forward, unable to stop herself. "Marissa!" "Why?" Marissa swallowed, tears rising. I didn't want—" A man's hand appeared behind Marissa, gripping her shoulder. The deep voice spoke again, calm and cold. "Evelyn Carter." Finally. Evelyn's body went rigid. A tall man stepped into view, wearing a clean jacket and expensive boots that didn't belong in mud. His hair was neat. His face was smooth, almost friendly, except his eyes were dead. Grant Holloway. Evelyn knew his name before anyone said it. He smiled slightly. "You've caused quite a stir." Ruiz snapped, "Sir, step out. Hands visible." Holloway raised his hands lazily as if he was humoring a child. "Deputy Ruiz, right? I've heard good things." Ruiz didn't blink. "Step out." Holloway stepped onto the porch, hands up, still smiling. Now, let's not make this dramatic. This is all a misunderstanding." Price stepped forward, flashing his badge. "Ohio BCI, Malcolm Price. Grant Holloway, you're going to speak with us." Holloway's smile didn't change, but his eyes flicked, assessing. "BCI? Over what?" Price's voice was hard. "Over land fraud, bribery, and whatever else we find when we dig into your books?" Holloway chuckled. "Books, sure." Evelyn's voice shook. "You sent men after me." Holloway looked at her, like she was a curious insect. "I sent no one after you. I don't even know you." Evelyn's hands clenched. "My husband did." That made Holloway pause, just a fraction. Then he smiled again, colder. "Tom Carter." Evelyn's eyes burned. "Yes." Holloway's voice softened, almost patronizing. "Your husband was a paranoid man. He saw monsters everywhere. You shouldn't let his ghost ruin your life." Evelyn stepped closer, anger rising like fire. "He wrote a letter. He hid proof." Holloway's eyes narrowed. "Proof of what, Evelyn?" Evelyn swallowed. She couldn't reveal everything here. "Not yet." Ruiz cut in. "We have enough to bring you in for questioning. We also have a report of elder abandonment and attempted theft. You're done." Holloway's smile widened. "Attempted theft? That's cute." Marissa whispered, "Mr. Holloway." Holloway didn't look at her. "Quiet." Evelyn stared at her daughter, pain twisting her face. "You locked me in there, Marissa." Marissa's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't think—" "You didn't think I'd live?" Evelyn's voice cracked. Marissa flinched. The deputies moved forward to cuff the men they'd caught. Holloway stood calmly, still unthreatened. Price said, "Where's the rest of the evidence? We know this cabin isn't just some family getaway." Holloway laughed softly. "Evidence? I don't know what you mean." Mercer stepped forward. "There's an old well behind the cabin." Holloway's eyes flicked toward Mercer, and for the first time, irritation showed. "Ranger Mercer, always sticking your nose where it doesn't belong." Mercer's voice was steady. "It belongs where the public land is being abused." Holloway's smile thinned. "Public land. Sure." Evelyn's mind flashed to Tom's letter. The most important proof wasn't in the box. It was deeper, tied to the well. Evelyn looked past the cabin, toward the trees behind it. She saw a patch of ground that dipped slightly like a hidden circle. The well. Her breath caught. Ruiz noticed her gaze. "Evelyn, stay here." Evelyn shook her head. "It's there." Ruiz's eyes narrowed. "Mercer, with me. Price, cover." They moved toward the back of the cabin with 2 deputies scanning the woods. Evelyn stayed on the porch area, but her body leaned like she wanted to run after them. Holloway watched them go, then turned to Evelyn with a quiet smile. "You're a stubborn woman," he said softly. "I can see why Tom married you." Evelyn stared at him. "What did you do to my husband?" Holloway's eyes glittered. "I did nothing. Tom died, didn't he? Heart attack. Tragic." Evelyn's chest tightened. Was it really a heart attack, or was it something else? Holloway leaned closer, voice low, almost kind. "You're tired, Evelyn. This is all too much. Give them the box. Go home. Let your daughter fix this. Don't ruin what's left of your family." Evelyn's voice shook with rage. "You used my daughter." Holloway's smile returned. "Your daughter used herself. People make choices. Sometimes they choose money over loyalty. That's not my fault." Evelyn's eyes filled. "I raised her better." Holloway shrugged. "Did you? Or did you just love her enough to ignore who she became?" Evelyn flinched like he slapped her. Marissa's voice broke. "Mom, I'm sorry." Evelyn turned to her daughter. "Why? Marissa? Tell me." Marissa's shoulders shook. "I was drowning. I had debt. I made mistakes. And then Mr. Holloway offered help. He said if I got you to sign the deed, he'd pay it off. He said it was just land. He said you wouldn't even miss it." Evelyn's tears spilled. "So you left me to die?" Marissa sobbed. "I didn't think they'd hurt you. He said they'd just scare you." Evelyn's voice was raw. "They broke into the cabin. They chased me through the woods. They would have taken everything, including my life, if they could." Marissa cried harder. "I'm sorry." Evelyn's hands trembled. "I needed you," Marissa whispered. "I know." Holloway sighed, annoyed. "This is getting messy." Then a shout came from behind the cabin. Ruiz's voice, loud. "We found something!" Evelyn's heart slammed. Holloway's head snapped toward the woods. For the first time, fear flickered behind his eyes. And that's when everything erupted. A gunshot cracked through the trees. Evelyn screamed. Deputies yelled, weapons drawn. Another shot. Then chaos. Boots running, voices shouting, Scout barking, Marissa crying. Evelyn's body froze. Then she dropped instinctively behind the porch railing, clutching the box to her chest like it could shield her. Ruiz shouted, "Get down! Get down!" Evelyn saw a man sprinting from the woods near the well, holding something, maybe a bag, maybe a case. A deputy tackled him, but the man twisted, firing again. The bullet hit the cabin wall with a thunk. Evelyn's breath caught. Splinters flew. Price shouted, "Drop it! Drop the weapon!" The man fired again. Then Mercer lunged, grabbing the shooter's arm, forcing the gun upward. The shot went into the air. Deputies piled on. The shooter was pinned, cuffed, disarmed. Silence fell hard, broken only by Evelyn's ragged breathing and Scout's frantic barking. Ruiz ran to Evelyn. "Are you hit?" Evelyn shook her head, trembling. "No, no." Ruiz exhaled, then looked toward the woods. "What did we find?" Mercer emerged, breathing hard, holding a rusted metal cylinder like an old waterproof tube. Price followed, carrying a black hard case splattered with mud. Mercer's face was grim. The well had a false cover. Under it there was a drop point. This tube was sealed, and the case was wedged behind stones. Price looked at Holloway. "That's what you didn't want us to find." Holloway's face was smooth again, but his eyes were darker. Ruiz said, "Open it." Price set the case on the ground and popped the latches. Inside was a laptop, 2 external hard drives, and a thick envelope labeled in Tom's handwriting. The main. Evelyn's knees nearly gave out. Tom had known. Tom had planned for this. Price opened the envelope carefully. Inside were printed photos, documents, and a handwritten statement. Ruiz leaned in. Mercer did too. Evelyn watched their faces shift as they read. "What is it?" Evelyn whispered, voice cracking. Price looked up, eyes sharp. "Ms. Carter, your husband documented a land theft scheme tied to illegal dumping and a missing person case from 1999. Evelyn's stomach dropped. "Missing person?" Mercer's voice was quiet. "There was a man named Calvin Stokes, a surveyor. He disappeared near these woods years ago. People said he ran off, but some of us never believed that. Evelyn's skin prickled. Price pointed to a photo, grainy but clear enough. A young man standing by a well, holding a clipboard. Another photo showed a truck near the tree line at night. Then a scanned document, a report with signatures. Evelyn stared. What does it say? Ruiz's face was hard. It says the land boundary was altered in county records. Someone forged documents. Tom found the originals. Price's eyes narrowed at Holloway. And it looks like Holloway benefited. Holloway sighed. Bored. People forge things all the time. Doesn't mean I did it. Price held up another page. This is an email chain. It includes your company's domain, and it references payments to a county clerk. Holloway's smile tightened. Anyone can fake an email. Mercer held up the rusted tube. And this? Price opened the tube. Inside was a USB drive wrapped in plastic, and a small folded paper. Price unfolded it and read aloud. If you find this, play the audio. It's his voice. Evelyn's breath caught. His voice. Whose? Price plugged the USB into his laptop, clicked a file. A crackling audio recording filled the air. A man's voice, strained, scared. This is Calvin Stokes. If anyone finds this, I'm not leaving these woods alive. I saw what they're burying. I saw the barrels. I saw Holloway's men. I heard the county commissioner's name. They told me if I talked, I'd disappear. Well, I'm talking. My name is Calvin Stokes. The audio cut off with a sudden thud, followed by muffled yelling, then silence. Evelyn felt like her blood turned to ice. Marissa gasped, hand over her mouth. Holloway's face remained composed, but his eyes flickered like something inside him had finally been touched by consequence. Ruiz's voice was low, furious. That's a confession of a cover-up. Price nodded. That's enough for warrants. That's enough for a state-level investigation, possibly federal, depending on environmental and public corruption. Evelyn whispered, Tom kept this all these years. Mercer's eyes softened. He tried to bring it out once. He got threatened. He backed off to protect you. Evelyn's tears fell, silent and heavy. Ruiz looked at Evelyn. Miss Carter, you just survived an attempted theft, an armed confrontation, and you're standing here holding the key to a major case. You understand what that means? Evelyn's voice shook. It means Tom wasn't crazy. Ruiz nodded. It means your husband was brave. Evelyn clutched the box tighter and whispered, and it means I'm not letting them erase him. Price looked at Holloway. Grand Holloway, you're coming with us. Holloway's smile returned, small and dangerous. On what charge? Suspicion? I'll be out before your coffee gets cold. Price's eyes didn't blink. Try it. Holloway leaned closer, voice low. You think you're the first person to try to take me down? I have lawyers who eat badges for breakfast. Ruiz stepped between them. Back up. Holloway lifted his hands, pretending innocence. All I'm saying is, this woman is old. She'll fold, she'll get tired, she'll want her bed and her tea and her quiet life, and when she does, you'll have nothing. Evelyn's heart pounded. Holloway's words hit the exact fear she'd been carrying, because it was true that she was tired. It was true that she wanted peace. But Evelyn looked at Tom's photo in her mind. Tom on the porch, Tom laughing, and she felt something stronger than tired. She felt purpose. Evelyn stepped forward, voice trembling but firm. You're wrong. Holloway tilted his head. Am I? Evelyn's eyes burned. I've been tired before. I was tired when I worked double shifts to buy my daughter a winter coat. I was tired when I sat by my husband's hospital bed. I was tired when I buried him. And I'm tired now. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. But I'm still here. Holloway's eyes narrowed. Evelyn continued. You thought being old meant I'd be quiet. You thought being abandoned meant I'd disappear. You thought wrong. Ruiz watched her, something like respect in her face. Holloway's smile faded. Evelyn whispered, Tom didn't get to see justice, but I will. For a moment, Holloway looked like he wanted to lash out. Then he smoothed his jacket and shrugged. We'll see. They cuffed Holloway. They cuffed Marissa, too, gently but firmly. Marissa cried, pleading with Evelyn. Mom, please, Marissa sobbed. I didn't mean. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed steady. I know you didn't plan to kill me, but you planned to leave me, and that's enough. Marissa's face crumpled. I'm sorry, Evelyn whispered. So am I. They loaded everyone into vehicles and returned to the sheriff's office. Evelyn sat in a quiet interview room with Scout at her feet, a cup of hot coffee in her hands that she barely tasted. Ruiz sat across from her, calm. We're going to take your statement, then we're going to get you somewhere safe, okay? Evelyn nodded. Her hands still shook. Price entered with a laptop, already typing. Miss Carter, we're going to move fast. We'll get warrants today. We'll contact Ohio EPA. We'll contact the Attorney General's office. And because this involves possible corruption and interstate financial transfers, we may notify the FBI. Evelyn's breath caught. FBI? Price nodded. Public corruption often goes federal. Evelyn stared at him. My husband was just a man. Price's voice softened. One man who kept the right evidence. Evelyn's eyes filled again. He hid it behind a wall. Mercer stood by the door, quiet. Sometimes the wall is the only place safe. Evelyn took a shaky breath, then looked at Ruiz. What happens to my daughter? She asked. Ruiz's expression was careful. She'll face charges, elder abandonment, conspiracy, maybe more depending on what she knew, but there's also something called accountability that comes with a chance to change. That will be up to the court. Evelyn's throat tightened. I don't want her to rot. Ruiz nodded. You can love her and still demand justice. Evelyn whispered, How do I do that? Ruiz leaned forward. By telling the truth, by not covering for her, by letting consequences happen, and by setting boundaries that protect you. Evelyn blinked hard. Boundaries? She hadn't had those with Marissa in a long time. Evelyn's voice broke. I keep thinking, if I had been a better mother. Ruiz's eyes softened. Ms. Carter, bad choices don't mean you failed. Sometimes people choose wrong even when they were loved right. Evelyn stared at the table, tears dripping onto her hands. Scout nudged her knee. Evelyn whispered, Thank you. Ruiz nodded. You're not alone now. That afternoon, after paperwork, statements, and medical checks, Ruiz insisted Evelyn go to the local hospital to make sure her heart was okay. The doctor ran tests, adjusted her meds, and told her she'd been under extreme stress. No kidding, Evelyn muttered, trying to smile. Scout stayed at her side the whole time, making nurses laugh. Someone found a spare leash. Someone brought a bowl of food. Evelyn watched Scout eat and felt a strange warmth in her chest. This dog came to her in the dark, not her daughter. A dog. What does that say about the world? And what does it say about who you can count on? After the hospital, Ruiz drove Evelyn to a safe temporary place, a small motel outside town. Nothing fancy, but clean. The sheriff's office paid for it as part of victim assistance. A social worker named Karen Blakely met them there, gentle and practical. Miss Carter, Karen said, you have options. We can connect you with senior housing, services, legal aid. You're not trapped. Evelyn nodded, overwhelmed. I need time. Karen smiled softly. Time is allowed. Ruiz left an officer in the parking lot for security. Evelyn sat on the motel bed. Scout curled at her feet, and finally let herself cry fully. Not the quiet tears she'd been swallowing, the ugly ones, the ones that shook her chest, the ones that poured out all the questions she didn't know how to say. Why did my child choose money? Why did my husband carry this alone? Why did life keep asking her to be strong when she was tired? And then, in the middle of her sobbing, Evelyn felt something else too. Relief, because she was alive. Because Tom's truth was finally in the open. Because Holloway's smile had cracked. The next days moved fast. BCI executed warrants on Holloway's company offices, his home, and several county buildings. The sheriff's office coordinated with state investigators. Ohio EPA got involved because the audio mentioned barrels, possible hazardous waste. A local journalist, a woman named Tessa Lane from a regional paper and a small podcast, started asking questions. Mercer knew her. She's stubborn, Mercer told Ruiz, and she cares about the truth. Ruiz nodded. We'll use her carefully. Evelyn met Tessa at the sheriff's office on day 3. Tessa was in her 30s, hair pulled back, notebook ready, eyes serious. I'm sorry for what happened to you, Tessa said, voice sincere. But I need to ask, do you want this story public? Evelyn hesitated. The idea of her pain becoming headlines made her stomach twist. But then she thought of Holloway, of his confidence, of his belief that small-town people fold. Evelyn lifted her chin. Yes, she said softly. I want it public. Tessa nodded. Then I'll protect you the best I can. Evelyn's voice shook. My daughter, she'll be in it. Tessa's eyes softened. I won't sensationalize it, but I won't hide the truth. Evelyn nodded slowly. That's fair. The first article hit within a week. Elderly woman abandoned in cabin leads to major corruption probe. Evelyn read the headline and felt her stomach flip. It sounded unreal, like something that happened to someone else. But then she remembered the cold crawl space, the flashlight beams, the gunshots. It was real, and the comments under the article were worse and better than she expected. People were furious. People were heartbroken. People shared their own stories of being mistreated by family. Some begged Evelyn to stay strong. Evelyn sat in the motel room, reading, Scout's head in her lap, and whispered, I didn't know so many people were hurting like this. Karen, the social worker, visited again with paperwork for victim compensation and legal services. She also brought something unexpected, a letter from Marissa. Evelyn's hands trembled when she saw her daughter's handwriting. She didn't open it at first. She stared at the envelope like it might bite. Karen said gently, You don't have to read it. Evelyn swallowed. I want to. I just don't know if I can. Karen nodded. Then do it when you're ready. That night, Evelyn sat on the bed and opened the letter. Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. I keep thinking about you in that cabin, and I feel like I can't breathe. I was desperate. I was stupid. I was ashamed. And Mr. Holloway made it sound like it was all business, like it was just paperwork, and you were just being stubborn. I know how awful that sounds. I know what I did. I don't want to blame anyone else, but I also need you to know I was scared. I was drowning in debt. I was being threatened. I felt trapped, and instead of asking you for help, I did the worst thing. I hurt you. I'm sorry. I don't know if you still love me, but I love you. I always did. I just lost myself. I'm sorry. Marissa Evelyn's tears fell onto the paper. She pressed the letter to her chest and sobbed again. But this time it was different, because in the words she could see two things at once, Marissa's guilt and Marissa's weakness. Evelyn didn't excuse it, but she understood something she hadn't before. Marissa wasn't just cruel. Marissa was broken, and broken people make dangerous choices. Does understanding someone make the betrayal hurt less? No, but it can help you decide what kind of person you want to be on the other side of it. On day 10, Price called Evelyn to come to the sheriff's office. We need you, he said. There's something you should see. Evelyn's heart pounded. What is it? Price's voice was tight. We ran the audio through enhancement. We also found financial records that matched Tom's ledger. And we found something in Holloway's warehouse. Evelyn's stomach twisted. What? Price paused. Barrels, buried on a parcel connected to your land. Evelyn felt dizzy. Mercer picked her up this time, driving her to the station. The woods blurred outside the window. At the station, Price showed Evelyn photos. Barrels half exposed in dirt, yellow hazard labels, mud and rust. A crew in protective gear. Evelyn covered her mouth. Oh my God! Price nodded. This is real, and it's linked to forged land boundaries. Holloway's company used altered parcels to dump waste where they thought no one would look. Evelyn's voice shook. Tom knew. Price held up another document. We also found records tying payments to a county commissioner and a clerk. This is bigger than one man. Evelyn's chest tightened. And Calvin Stokes? Price's eyes were serious. We reopened the missing person case. We're searching the area with cadaver dogs and ground-penetrating radar. Evelyn felt tears rise. A man disappeared, possibly killed, because he saw too much. And Tom carried that weight. Mercer stood beside her. Tom used to say the woods keep secrets until someone is brave enough to listen. Evelyn wiped her face. I didn't know I'd be the one. Price looked at her. Miss Carter, you've been through hell, but you're also the reason this is unraveling. The state is preparing a case. If you're willing, your testimony about abandonment and the attempted theft will strengthen it. Evelyn swallowed. I'll testify. Price nodded. Good, Mercer added. But Holloway won't go quietly. As if to prove Mercer right, 2 nights later, Evelyn's motel room phone rang at 11:46 p.m. Evelyn woke with a jolt. Scout growled, low. Evelyn stared at the phone like it was poisonous. It rang again. Evelyn didn't answer. It stopped. Then her cell phone buzzed. Unknown number. Evelyn's heart pounded. She stared at it, then pressed ignore. The phone buzzed again. This time, a voicemail appeared. Evelyn's hands trembled as she pressed play. A man's voice filled the room, smooth and calm. Evelyn Carter, you're making a mistake. You think you're doing the right thing, but you're just hurting your daughter. You want peace. Stop. If you go forward, people will get hurt. You're old. Don't die for someone else's war. Evelyn's blood ran cold. It was Holloway's voice. How did he get her number? Her motel? He was in jail, wasn't he? Unless he wasn't. Unless his influence reached through walls. Evelyn's breath came fast. She grabbed her phone and called Ruiz. Ruiz answered immediately, voice sharp. Evelyn? Evelyn whispered. He called me. Ruiz's voice hardened. What did he say? Evelyn played the voicemail. Silence on the line. Then Ruiz said, Stay inside. Lock the door. Do not open for anyone. I'm sending a unit. Evelyn's hands shook as she locked every latch. Scout paced, growling. Minutes later, a deputy knocked. Sheriff's office. Evelyn checked the peephole. Uniform. Badge. She opened slowly. The deputy stepped in, face serious. Ma'am, Ruiz is on her way. We're going to move you. This isn't safe anymore. Evelyn's stomach twisted. Where? The deputy said. A safer location. Quiet. Secure. Evelyn grabbed Scout's leash, her coat, Tom's photo, and the box, which she still kept close like a talisman. They moved her to a small safe house. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet apartment owned by a county program for victims. Curtains, locks, a security camera at the door. Ruiz arrived, eyes blazing. He's trying to intimidate you. Evelyn's voice shook. How can he call me? Ruiz clenched her jaw. He has people. Evelyn whispered. He said my daughter will get hurt. Ruiz's eyes softened slightly. That's what predators do. They threaten what you love to control you. Evelyn's chest tightened. What do I do? Ruiz leaned closer, voice steady. You keep telling the truth, and you let us protect you. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. I'm so tired. Ruiz nodded. I know. Evelyn looked down at Scout. But I'm not stopping. Ruiz's mouth tightened with respect. Good. If you're still here with Evelyn right now, if you're feeling that knot in your chest, like you want to reach through the screen and protect her, take a second to hit like, because the next part is where the danger gets real in a different way, and the truth gets tested. The state scheduled preliminary hearings. Holloway's lawyers argued for bail. They claimed the evidence was circumstantial. They tried to paint Evelyn as confused, manipulated, unstable. Evelyn heard about it and felt rage burn through her fatigue. Confused, unstable, because she was old. That word again, old, used like a weapon. Price prepared Evelyn for court testimony. Karen helped her understand her rights. Mercer visited with updates from the woods search. Then on day 21, Mercer arrived with a grim face. They found something, he said. Evelyn's breath caught. Calvin? Mercer nodded slowly. They found remains near the old ridgeline, not far from the well. Evelyn covered her mouth, tears spilling. Mercer's voice was quiet. We're waiting on confirmation, but it's likely him. Evelyn shook, grief mixing with fury. All these years. Mercer nodded. Tom kept his voice for him. That audio, it mattered. Evelyn whispered, Tom carried that like a stone. Mercer looked at her. And now you're carrying it out into the light. Evelyn wiped her face. "I don't want revenge," she whispered. "I want accountability." Mercer nodded. "Then you're exactly who this needs." In court, Holloway walked in wearing a suit like he was attending a fundraiser, not facing charges tied to corruption and death. His lawyers flanked him, polished and confident. Marissa entered in a jail uniform, looking smaller than Evelyn remembered, eyes swollen from crying. Evelyn sat with Ruiz beside her, Mercer behind them, Karen close. The courtroom smelled like old wood and stale air. When Holloway looked at Evelyn, he smiled slightly, like he still believed she would fold. Evelyn lifted her chin and stared back. What would it take to break a man like that? Money doesn't scare him. Power doesn't shame him. So what does? Truth. Public truth. The kind that sticks. Evelyn testified first about the abandonment. She described the drive to the cabin, the lock, the cold, the men, the chase, the gunshot. Her voice shook, but she spoke clearly. A defense attorney tried to twist her words. "Ms. Carter, isn't it possible you misunderstood? Your daughter simply left you for a short time, correct?" Evelyn stared at him, stunned by the audacity. Then she answered steady. "No," he pressed. "You said the door was locked from the outside, but you also said you found an unlocked back door. Isn't it possible you could have left at any time?" Evelyn's jaw tightened. "If you think an elderly woman with heart medication, no phone, no car, and no money is free because a back door opens to miles of woods, then you don't understand freedom." The courtroom murmured. The attorney frowned. "No further questions?" Ruiz squeezed Evelyn's hand under the table. Then Price testified about the documents, the altered deeds, the payments, the emails, the hard drives. Then Mercer testified about the well and the barrels, the forest violations, the patterns of trucks. Then the medical examiner spoke about the remains found near the ridge line, linking them to the missing person case. Holloway's smile faded as the pieces stacked up, but Holloway still wasn't done. Outside the courthouse, after the hearing, Evelyn walked out into the autumn air with Scout at her side. Cameras flashed. Tessa Lane stood at a respectful distance, reporting quietly. Evelyn didn't like the attention. It made her feel exposed, but she kept walking. Then she heard her name. "Ms. Carter!" A man approached quickly from the crowd. Ruiz stepped forward instantly, hand up. "Back up." The man froze, hands raised. I'm not here to hurt her. Please." He was in his late 50s, wearing a worn jacket, eyes red, face drawn with grief. "My name is Dennis Stokes," he said, voice shaking. "Calvin was my brother." Evelyn's heart clenched. Dennis's eyes filled with tears. I heard what you did. I heard you found his voice." Evelyn's breath caught. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Dennis stepped back, wiping his face. "Don't be sorry. Thank you." Evelyn's tears fell. He recorded something. He tried to warn." Dennis nodded, sobbing. "We spent 26 years not knowing. My mother died still waiting." Evelyn felt like grief punched her in the chest. "I'm so sorry." Dennis shook his head fiercely. "No, you gave us something back. You gave us truth." Evelyn swallowed, voice trembling. "My husband kept it." Dennis nodded. "Then your husband was a hero, and so are you." Evelyn's knees trembled. She reached out and held Dennis's hands for a moment. Two strangers connected by the same wound. Dennis whispered, "Please, don't stop. Please don't let them bury him again." Evelyn nodded, tears streaming. "I won't." That night, Evelyn sat in the safe apartment, Scout curled beside her, and stared at Tom's photo. "Did you know," she whispered, "that your secret would come to me like this?" She imagined Tom's voice, gentle. "You're stronger than you think, Ev." Evelyn wiped her face. "I'm trying." Weeks turned into months. The investigation expanded. More arrests followed. County employees, a contractor, 2 men connected to Holloway's security team. Ohio EPA confirmed hazardous waste, triggering heavier charges. Public corruption angles brought federal attention. When an FBI agent arrived at the sheriff's office to interview Evelyn, she felt her hands shake all over again. The agent, Special Agent Lila Chen, was professional and calm, not intimidating. Ms. Carter, Chen said, I'm sorry for what you've endured. I need to ask you about any contact you had with Holloway or his associates before the cabin incident. Evelyn answered everything honestly. She mentioned Marissa's church events. She mentioned the papers. She mentioned the pressure. Agent Chen nodded, taking notes. Thank you. This matters. Evelyn swallowed. I don't want to be famous. Agent Chen's eyes softened. You won't be. You'll be protected. But your courage will matter to people you'll never meet. Evelyn looked down at her hands. I was just trying to survive. Chen nodded. Sometimes that's exactly how justice starts. Meanwhile, Karen helped Evelyn apply for senior housing and connect with legal aid to address her land. The cabin, the woods. Evelyn had avoided thinking about it too deeply because every time she did, she pictured the flashlight beams and boots. But one crisp afternoon, Mercer took her out there again, this time safely, with deputies nearby. The cabin now a secured crime scene. Evelyn stood outside, breathing in the cold air. Scout sniffed the ground, tail wagging. The cabin looked smaller than she remembered, like fear had made it giant. Mercer stood beside her. You don't have to go inside. Evelyn swallowed. I want to. She walked up the steps slowly, heart pounding, and stepped through the doorway. Inside, the cabin smelled less like menace now, and more like old wood. The stove sat quiet. The wall panel was open, the hiding spot exposed. Evelyn walked to it and ran her fingers along the seam. This is where Tom put it, she whispered. Mercer nodded. He chose this place because he thought no one would look. He thought it was forgotten. Evelyn's eyes filled. He hid truth in a forgotten cabin. Mercer's voice was gentle. And then life brought you here. Evelyn looked around. Why did he never take me here? Mercer sighed. He told me once he wanted to, but he felt the place was contaminated by what he knew. He didn't want you to associate it with fear. Evelyn swallowed. And now I do. Mercer nodded. But you're also taking it back. Evelyn stepped outside again, looked toward the well. The well area was cordoned off. Evidence markers still dotted the ground. Evelyn stared at it, heart heavy. Calvin's voice came from there. Mercer nodded. And now his family has answers. Evelyn whispered. Tom did that. Mercer glanced at her. You did too. Evelyn shook her head. I just opened a wall. Mercer's eyes softened. Sometimes that's all it takes. As the case moved toward trial, Holloway's arrogance finally cracked. His lawyers tried to delay, tried to suppress evidence, tried to smear witnesses. But the audio, the records, the barrels, the body, it was too much. Public pressure rose. News crews came. People demanded resignations. And then one day Price called Evelyn with a strange tone. Ms. Carter, he said, Holloway requested to speak with you. Evelyn's stomach flipped. Why? Price said. He claims he wants to apologize. Evelyn laughed, bitter and shocked. Apologize? Price's voice was careful. Or manipulate. We won't let you go alone. It would be in a monitored interview room. Evelyn's hands shook. I don't want to see him. Price paused. You don't have to. Evelyn stared at Scout, who lifted its head like it sensed her tension. Then Evelyn thought of Dennis Stokes, of his hands shaking, of his mother dying without answers. Evelyn's jaw tightened. If he wants to talk, she said quietly, I'll listen. Price exhaled. All right, we'll set it up. In the jail interview room, Holloway sat behind a table, orange jumpsuit replacing his suit, but his posture still proud. Evelyn walked in with Ruiz beside her, Price nearby, Agent Chen watching through the window. Holloway smiled when he saw Evelyn. Evelyn didn't sit right away. She stared at him, feeling how small he tried to make her feel, and refusing. Holloway gestured. Sit, please. Evelyn sat slowly, hands folded. Holloway leaned forward. I want you to know, I never intended for you to be harmed. Evelyn stared. You sent men with a gun. Holloway's smile thinned. I didn't send them. People act on their own. Evelyn's voice was cold. That's your favorite lie. Holloway's eyes flickered. I'm here because I think we can help each other. Evelyn's stomach twisted. Help each other? Holloway nodded. You have influence now. People care about you. You can say you were confused. You can say your daughter acted alone. You can soften this. Evelyn's hands clenched. Why would I do that? Holloway smiled. Because your daughter is facing serious time. Evelyn's breath caught. Holloway's voice lowered. Marissa isn't like me. She can't survive prison. You know that. Evelyn's eyes burned. Don't talk about my daughter like you care. Holloway shrugged. I care about leverage. Evelyn swallowed hard. What do you want? Holloway leaned in. I want you to stop cooperating with the feds. I want you to say the audio is questionable. I want you to create doubt. Evelyn's heart pounded. Holloway watched her, confident. Evelyn took a slow breath. And in return? Holloway smiled. I can make sure Marissa gets a lighter deal. Rehab instead of prison. Probation. A second chance. Evelyn felt pain twist through her chest. The temptation hit, real and sharp. Because she did love Marissa, she didn't want her daughter destroyed. But then she pictured the cabin door slamming, the deadbolt, the cold, the men's voices, the gunshot. Evelyn's voice trembled, but stayed firm. You're offering me mercy for my daughter that you didn't offer me. Holloway's smile tightened. I'm offering reality. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Reality is my husband is dead. Reality is Calvin Stokes is dead. Reality is you buried poison in the ground and lied for years. Holloway's expression darkened slightly. Be careful. Evelyn leaned forward, voice raw. My daughter made a terrible choice. But you made a life out of terrible choices. You don't get to buy your way out with my love. Holloway's eyes narrowed. Think about it. If Marissa goes away for 10 years, you'll be alone again. Is that what you want? Evelyn swallowed, tears dripping down her cheeks. Then she said something that surprised even herself. No. Holloway's smile returned, triumphant. Evelyn continued, I don't want to be alone. That's why I'm not choosing silence. I'm choosing community. I'm choosing truth. I'm choosing a life that isn't built on fear. Holloway's smile faded. Evelyn's voice shook with rage. You don't own my daughter. You don't own my love. You don't own my story. Holloway's eyes turned cold. Then you'll regret it. Evelyn stood slowly. I already regretted the moment I trusted my daughter over my instincts. I'm not adding you to the list. Ruiz stepped forward. We're done. As Evelyn walked out, Holloway called after her, voice sharp. Your husband should have stayed quiet. Evelyn stopped, turned and looked at him one last time. He couldn't, she said softly. And neither can I. Outside the jail, Evelyn took a shaky breath, chest tight. Ruiz touched her shoulder. You okay? Evelyn nodded, tears still falling. No, she whispered. But yes, because she felt it, the shift. Holloway wasn't controlling the story anymore. Truth was, months later the trial began. The courtroom was packed. Tessa Lane reported daily. National outlets picked up the story because of the corruption angle and the environmental crime. Evelyn hated the spotlight, but she understood its purpose now. Light is uncomfortable, but it stops rot. Evelyn testified again, this time about Holloway's call, his intimidation, his attempt to bargain with her daughter's future. Agent Chen testified about federal findings, financial transfers, shell companies, bribes. Experts testified about toxic waste. Dennis Stokes testified about his brother's disappearance, his family's decades of pain. When Dennis spoke, Evelyn cried quietly, holding Scout's leash. Then came the moment everyone waited for, Marissa's testimony. Marissa took the stand, hands shaking. She looked at Evelyn first. Evelyn's heart broke seeing her daughter like that. Small, scared, stripped of excuses. Marissa's voice trembled. I abandoned my mother. I locked her in the cabin. I thought it would force her to sign, or scare her, or make her give up. The courtroom murmured. Marissa swallowed. I was wrong. I was cruel. I was selfish. The defense tried to redirect blame toward Holloway, and Marissa didn't resist. He pressured me, she said, crying. He promised money. He promised to fix my problems. He told me my mom was stubborn, that she'd be fine. The prosecutor asked, Did you know men were going to come to the cabin? Marissa's shoulders shook. Yes. Did you know they were armed? Marissa hesitated, then whispered, I suspected. Evelyn's breath caught. Marissa wiped her face. I didn't think they'd shoot. I didn't think. The prosecutor's voice was hard. But you left her anyway. Marissa sobbed. Yes. Evelyn closed her eyes, tears spilling. It hurt like a fresh wound. But it was also the truth finally spoken. Holloway's lawyer tried to paint Marissa as unstable, unreliable, hysterical. But the evidence didn't care about hysteria. It cared about facts. In closing arguments, the prosecutor looked at the jury and said, This case is about power abusing the vulnerable. It's about greed poisoning land and people. And it's about an elderly woman who refused to disappear. Evelyn's chest tightened. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Evelyn barely slept. When they returned, the courtroom felt like it was holding its breath. The foreperson stood. On the count of conspiracy to commit fraud, we find the defendant, Grant Holloway, guilty. A murmur swept the room. Count after count. Guilty. Public corruption. Guilty. Environmental crimes. Guilty. Tampering with records. Guilty. Obstruction. Guilty. Evelyn felt her knees go weak. Ruiz squeezed her hand. Scout sat quietly as if sensing the gravity. When the judge spoke about sentencing, Holloway finally showed something like real anger. He glared at Evelyn like she had ruined him personally, like she was the reason the world didn't obey him. Evelyn stared back, tears streaming, and felt something wash over her. Not victory like fireworks. Something quieter. Release. Because the monster had a name and a sentence now. Because the system, slow, flawed, human, had done the right thing this time. If you're watching this and you've made it this far, take a second to hit like, because what happens next isn't just about punishment. It's about what Evelyn does with her life after the storm, and it might change the way you see your own family. Marissa's sentencing came later. The judge considered her cooperation, her confession, her lack of prior violent record. She still faced consequences. Evelyn sat in the courtroom as the judge spoke. Marissa Carter, the judge said, you abandoned your elderly mother in a remote cabin, exposing her to extreme danger. That is not a mistake. That is a choice. Marissa sobbed quietly. The judge continued, however, you also cooperated with investigators, provided key testimony, and have shown remorse. The court is ordering a sentence that includes incarceration, followed by supervised release and mandatory rehabilitation. Evelyn's chest tightened. Marissa looked at her, eyes begging. Evelyn didn't nod. She didn't shake her head. She just watched, tears falling. Because love didn't erase consequences, and consequences didn't erase love. After the case, Evelyn's life didn't turn into a fairy tale. She didn't wake up one morning suddenly young or rich or free of pain, but something did change. She got her own place again. Small, safe, senior housing in Marietta near a community center. A one-bedroom with a little porch and a view of trees. She hung Tom's photo on the wall. She adopted Scout officially, with paperwork and a new collar that said, Scout Carter. Evelyn attended a church potluck one Sunday because Karen insisted, and she found herself sitting at a table with other older women who laughed loudly and complained about their knees like it was a sport. One of them, a woman named June, looked at Evelyn and said, You're that lady from the news. Evelyn winced. I guess. June leaned in. You're tough as nails. Evelyn shook her head, embarrassed. I was terrified. June smiled. Being tough doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you show up anyway. Evelyn felt tears rise. She joined a support group for seniors who'd been financially abused by family. She listened to stories that made her stomach twist. She held hands. She told her own story. She learned she wasn't alone. Agent Chen connected Evelyn with a victim advocacy program that helped her understand her rights and protect her finances. And then, something unexpected happened. Because the land, the Carter place, became part of a settlement. The state seized assets from Holloway's operations. Some funds were allocated to environmental cleanup and victim compensation. Evelyn's legal aid attorney, a sharp older woman named Denise Harper, fought to secure Evelyn's rightful ownership and restitution. "You didn't ask for this," Denise told Evelyn, "but you're entitled to repair." Evelyn didn't want to feel greedy, but she understood something now. Repair isn't greed. Repair is justice with hands. With restitution funds, Evelyn didn't buy a mansion. She paid for her medical needs. She saved enough to feel secure. And she did one thing Tom would have wanted. She created a small local fund, modest but real, through the community center, to help seniors who were facing housing insecurity or elder neglect, a fund called the Carter Light Fund. When June asked why she named it that, Evelyn smiled softly. "Because light matters," she said, "even a little." Months later, Mercer took Evelyn out to the woods again, not to the cabin, but to a cleared area where cleanup crews had worked. The barrels were gone. The ground was being treated. Signs warned people away while restoration happened. Evelyn stood at the edge of the trees and breathed in cold air. Scout sniffed the ground, then ran a short circle and returned like he was checking on her. Mercer said quietly, "It's going to take years to fully heal the land." Evelyn nodded. "So will I." Mercer glanced at her. "You ever think about going back to the cabin?" Evelyn's chest tightened. "Sometimes." Mercer nodded. "It's still there, but it's different now." Evelyn stared at the trees. "So am I." And then came the hardest part. Marissa. Marissa wrote letters regularly from the rehabilitation program within the correctional facility. They were not excuses. They were honest, painful reflections. Evelyn read them slowly, sometimes crying, sometimes angry, sometimes numb. Karen helped Evelyn decide what boundaries looked like. "You can love her," Karen said gently, "and still protect yourself." Evelyn nodded. "I'm learning." After a year, Marissa requested a supervised visit. Evelyn's hand shook when she got the request. She didn't want to go. She wanted to go. Both were true. Ruiz offered to accompany her. "You shouldn't do it alone." Evelyn nodded. On the day of the visit, Evelyn wore a simple sweater and her wedding ring. She wasn't trying to make a statement. She just wanted to be herself. The correctional facility was clean, bright, controlled. The visiting room smelled like disinfectant and coffee. Marissa entered in uniform, hair pulled back, face thinner, eyes red. When Marissa saw Evelyn, she stopped like she couldn't move. Then she sat down across the table, hands trembling. "Mom," she whispered, voice breaking. Evelyn stared at her daughter's face, the same eyes she had as a child, now filled with shame. "Hi," Evelyn said softly. Marissa started crying immediately. "I don't deserve you being here." Evelyn's throat tightened. "I'm not here because you deserve it," she said gently. "I'm here because I need closure, and because I need you to understand what you did." Marissa nodded, sobbing. "I do." Evelyn's hands trembled on the table. "When you drove away, I thought I was going to die out there." Marissa covered her mouth, crying harder. Evelyn continued, voice shaking but steady. "I heard men outside. I hid under the floor. I crawled through dirt like an animal. I ran until my chest felt like it would explode. I begged strangers for help." Marissa's shoulders shook violently. "I'm sorry? I'm so sorry?" Evelyn's eyes burned. "I raised you with love. I gave you everything I could, and you still made a choice that almost killed me." Marissa looked up, eyes desperate. I know. I don't have excuses. I was weak." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Yes, you were weak. And weakness hurts people when it's fed by greed." Marissa sobbed. "I hate who I became." Evelyn's voice softened slightly. "Then become someone else." Marissa blinked, stunned. Evelyn continued, "I'm not here to rescue you. I can't. And I won't. You have to do the work." Marissa nodded quickly. "I am, I swear. I'm in therapy. I'm in the program. I'm trying." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "Good." Marissa whispered, Do you still love me?" Evelyn's chest tightened. That question carried years. Evelyn took a shaky breath. "I love the child you were," she said softly. "And I love the part of you that can change. But love doesn't mean I trust you. Love doesn't mean you get access to my life the way you used to." Marissa cried, nodding. I understand. Evelyn swallowed. If you want a relationship with me someday, it will be slow. It will be honest. And it will have boundaries so strong you can't break them. Marissa wiped her face. I'll accept that. I'll do anything. Evelyn's tears fell. Then start with this. Marissa leaned forward, listening. Evelyn's voice trembled. Tell the truth, always. Even when it makes you look bad. Especially then. Marissa nodded. Okay. Evelyn whispered. And stop chasing money like it's love. It isn't. Marissa sobbed. I know. Evelyn sat back, exhausted. She looked at her daughter and felt something inside her settle. Not forgiveness like a clean slate, but forgiveness like a door that opens a crack, with a lock still on it. A chance, not a guarantee. Ruiz waited nearby, respectful. As Evelyn stood to leave, Marissa whispered, Mom? Evelyn paused. Marissa's voice shook. Thank you for not letting me become Holloway. Evelyn's eyes filled. That part is still up to you. Marissa nodded, tears streaming. I'll try. Outside in the parking lot, Evelyn sat in Ruiz's car for a moment and breathed. Ruiz asked softly, How do you feel? Evelyn stared ahead. Like I walked through fire and didn't turn to ash. Ruiz nodded. That's a pretty good way to put it. Evelyn looked down at her hands. I don't know what happens next. Ruiz's voice was gentle. Next is your life, the one you get to build now. Evelyn exhaled slowly. Weeks later, on a quiet morning, Evelyn sat on her porch with a mug of coffee. Scout lay at her feet, older now, healthier, coat shiny. The air smelled like fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. Across the street, June waved and shouted, Don't forget bingo night! Evelyn laughed softly. I won't. She sipped her coffee, feeling the warmth spread through her chest. On her porch railing sat a small wooden box, new, clean, made by a volunteer at the community center. Inside were letters, photos, and Tom's original note, sealed in plastic. Not hidden, not buried, just held. Evelyn looked at the trees beyond her street and thought of the cabin again. The cabin was where she was abandoned, but it was also where she found Tom's courage waiting for her. It was where she found Scout. It was where she found proof that changed everything. Not just about Holloway, about herself. Because the secret in the woods wasn't only corruption, it was the fact that an elderly woman, written off, discarded, could still become the turning point in a story that shook an entire county. Evelyn leaned back, closed her eyes, and whispered, Tom, we did it. Scout thumped his tail once like he agreed. If you've made it to the end of Evelyn's story, I want to ask you something. Have you ever seen an older person being treated like they don't matter? And if you have, what did you do? Or what do you wish you had done? Drop a comment and tell me your city too, because I read them all. And if you want another story where justice takes time but still arrives, stay with this channel, because the next one might hit even closer to home.